So I know that this time of the year, towards the end of the year, is a high season for studios hiring gameplay animators. And because of this, I would like to tell you guys the 10 most asked questions for gameplay animators that hopefully will help you all with your interviews as this year is coming to an end. I want all of you to actually get into the industry at some point or another, and hopefully these questions will help you to get there. So let's get to it. Hey guys, my name is Harvey Newman. If you're new here, I like to share my passion for game dev, animation here in this channel with all of you. I've been doing it for a good 20 years now, and now I'm doing this YouTube channel full time thanks to y'all. And if you haven't subscribed, and if you're new to the channel and you like this content, consider subscribing, considering pressing the like button, and then if you really like it, press the bell button so you never miss another piece of content. Now, when it comes to interviews, obviously things can be incredibly convoluted and there's lots of things that you have to think about. And most likely, if you're anything like me and this is your very first interview, you're probably very much stressed, slightly scared, and praying and crossing everything you have in order to get that first job in the industry, right? That dream job finally, right? After all the hard work. Now, there is certain questions that keep popping up all the time, and questions that I've asked multiple times and people asked me multiple times when having interviews with different employers or future employers, right? So there's going to be two categories here, and there's going to be a personal side and there's going to be a company side, because the most questions are going to revolve around things about you and then also things about the company that you might possibly be working for in the future. Now, when it comes to personal questions, the number one question most likely that you're going to get is how passionate you are about animation, because they are hiring you for the job of an animator, and then they want to know how much do you really enjoy animation, just to know if you are somebody that they would like to actually have as an animator and actually kind of like lives and breathes animation, right? Every single studio wants anybody in any position to really be passionate about it, because if they're passionate about it, it means they are in it for the long run. And they also know a lot about the craft. So that's number one. Now, when it comes to number two, when it comes to personal questions, is you are going to get asked a lot about your passion for games. So how passionate are you about games and game dev, right? How many years have you been a gamer? How many games have you played? How many years have you wanted to actually be a game dev? All those questions are going to be in the realm of games, because after all, this is why you are there, to actually work in games. And then if you have passion for games and animation in equal parts, it means that you are the right person for the job, right? Now, your showreel obviously is a big part of why you're actually interviewing with them. And if you are interviewing with them, most likely it's because they like your showreel, they saw something they liked. So they will ask you questions most likely about your showreel. So questions such as, give me a breakdown of your showreel. This means that they want you to take them through your showreel, every single piece, and kind of talk through it, right? And make sure that if this happens, that you talk about every single piece with a lot of passion, and you tell them about a little bit of a history or story, I should say, about each piece, on why they are in your showreel, why did they make it. Because your showreel should be really a highlight of your best work, so there must be something connected with the reasoning of why each piece is within your showreel, right? Now, another personal question that you're gonna get is about what is your favorite game or favorite games and why. Now, this is actually a super crucial one. It might sound like it's going to be a fun one because it's like, oh yeah, I love games and let me tell you about it. But what they really kind of like trying to hint at or know about is if you really know about the game enough to explain to them why you like the game from a game dev's perspective, right? So talking about the gameplay, talking about the animations, why the animations were so amazing, talking about the mechanics of the animations, talking about how good the game felt and what made that game feel good. Those kind of things, instead of just saying, I left the game because it made me feel great. that is very generic and is not super game dev. So try to get into the bottom of why the game means so much to you, or the games mean so much to you. And also talking about genres, it kind of helps sometimes that you have a favorite game in the same genre of the types of games that the studio makes, right? So they know that you are passionate about first-person games or third-person games or action adventure or RPGs or whatever it is, right? So yeah, those kind of things are incredibly important for you to answer when they ask you for your favorite game, even though it sounds like a fun question. Now, one last question that might be related to you / the studio, more or less. How familiar are you with gameplay implementation? Now, this is basically a bonus question, because if you are hired as an animator, especially if it's a junior animator, most studios don't really expect you to know a lot about gameplay implementation. But if you do know, it's going to be a massive bonus for you to have in your experience, right, in your repertoire. So if you say yes to this question about gameplay implementation, 100% they will ask you questions about how much do you know, but also break down how you would implement an animation in game in Unreal, or tell me about animation logic and how much do you know about it. Things like of that nature are going to be very important for you to know if you say yes to this question, right? So be very careful that if you answer yes, you really know your stuff and you have done your research, maybe you tried a little bit of implementation in Engine, so you can actually take them through a very basic gameplay implementation of an animation. Now, these are the main personal questions that you're going to get. Now let's move on to the studio questions. Now, these studio questions are going to be very much related to the job that you're applying to. Believe it or not, every studio believes themselves to be special because they have achieved so many things, and they also believe that if you apply to them, that you are applying for a reason. It's not just a random application of like, I'm just going to apply to 50 studios and then whoever gets me, like, I'll go in and interview. If you apply for the studio, they fully think that you specifically apply to them and you want to work for them. So if they think that, which is a great thing, then you need to actually get to learn more about the studio and exactly what makes you excited to work for the studio. So having said all that, some of the questions they might ask you is about how much do you know about the studio, right? So let's say you are applying for Guerrilla Games, right? So how much do you know about Guerrilla Games? So for example, in your case, it might benefit you to talk about Killzone games, right? Because they no longer do Killzone games. So maybe you can talk about how you play them and how you felt about the Killzone games and how that transition to Horizon actually made you actually appreciate them more. What do you like about Horizon now? And how their games make you feel as a player, right? All of those things are great things for you to tell to a studio, because it tells them that you are passionate about the studio, not just games in general, but the studio specifically, which is basically what they want to hire for, right? Now, they also might ask you if the game is out, if there's DLC, if, like, you know, it's a living, breathing game that actually has DLC going on. They might ask you, what do you think about our game? What do you like about our game? And how much have you played our game? And this is all for them to know how much you realistically know about the job that you're going to be doing and the things that you're going to be working on. Because believe it or not, a lot of animators, even though they apply for many studios, they really don't know anything about the studio or the game they're going to be working on. So perhaps they actually want to work on it on third person, or they're not very experienced in third person, and they're applying for a first person studio. So there's going to be some kind of like disconnection there that the studios are really quick at picking up on, and you don't want to be that person, right? You want to make sure that you always know that you're applying for the right studio and that they have the right person, right? So you knowing exactly what kind of assets and animations you're going to be working on bodes really well for you. Now, one of the main questions that the studio might ask you is, why would you want to work for us? And this is really a big question, because if you think about it, you need to have a strong motivation and a strong reason for you to apply to work in a studio. Now, I have had many interviews that the future animators, they kind of go, I don't know, an agency contacted me and this is why I'm here and this is why I applied. This makes anybody in the studio feel pretty bad, because it feels very much like they're just looking for a job, any job, and this just happens to be one job, and they just want to get in any studio. And this is not really what studios are looking for. They are looking for passionate people that know exactly what they want to go and what I want to be, and they definitely know what studios want to work for, right? So you telling the studio exactly your reasoning on why you would like to work for them specifically helps you a ton. So make sure you think about those things before you go to the interview. Now, the last question, the 10th question, and the question that might matter maybe the most, or I don't know, it depends on the studio, and it's kind of generic because a lot of studios, a lot of workplaces actually ask this question, which is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So this question still exists in games, and I actually like it, even though it might seem very, very cheesy, but I actually like it because what studios are looking for when they ask you this question is, do you see yourself working here, or do you see yourself working somewhere else? Sometimes a lot of future animators, a lot of future artists answer, oh, I see myself working at Blizzard. I love Blizzard because of these reasons. Or I see myself working at Insomniac Games or Kojima Productions. And that really means to the studio that you see this job as a stopgap to get to another studio, so it doesn't feel so good for the studio that you're applying for, right? So what you want to say is something along those lines that either I see myself working for you guys in the future and see where things go, or I see myself as a really kind of like accomplished animator, being an animation director or animation lead. That perhaps doesn't mean that you're going to be working for the studio specifically, but you achieve or want to achieve something greater than you are right now, right? That you have big ambitions, that you want to go somewhere. Because the flip side of this answer might be that you might be perceived as somebody that is not very ambitious. And if you're not very ambitious and you work in a very creative and ambitious kind of industry like games, might not bode so well for you, right? It might seem like you're just somebody that just there to warm up your seat, earn a paycheck, and that's about it, which is something that studios don't want as well. So those were the 10 questions that you get asked in a job interview for a gameplay animator. I got asked those questions everywhere I went, and I also asked those questions on my own interviews when I was interviewing for getting gameplay animators. Doesn't matter if they are leads or juniors, and they are very useful to actually gauge the person that you're trying to hire. Keep those in mind as you actually go through your interviews. Definitely best of luck to all of you that have interviews lined up right now. If you enjoy this content and if it was of service to you and you enjoyed it, definitely consider subscribing if you haven't so far. Hit the like button for sure because it helps a lot with YouTube, and hit the bell button so you don't miss out in any more videos. Also, major thanks to all my Patreons that support me every single month. If you'd like to check it out, definitely head over to Patreon, check out all the perks, lots of great stuff, and it'll be awesome to see you guys there. And that's all I had for you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and until next week, stay well, stay safe. Peace.